Our next speaker has been known to make policies fun. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Louis Eisen.
You probably didn't expect to hear the words policy and fun in the same sentence, am I right? You know, most people, when they think of policies and rules, they associate it with notions like strictness and commands and discipline. My name is Louis Eisen, and I confess I used to think of them the same way. Today I know better. Policies done right are associated with notions like clarity and decision-making and target setting and cooperation. No matter what your policies are about, IT policies, HR, finance, security, whatever your policies cover, rules are about helping people do the right thing. So it really is a lot more fun. And increasing compliance in your organization is about helping people do the right thing. Today, I use a methodology that I call perfect policies that helps organizations rewrite their policies, directives, and standards so that they are engaging rather than alienating. Now, why rewrite policies? Well, obviously, an organization's policies can start to become stale after a while, and they need refreshing. But more often than not, I hear someone say, we just have too many rules, they're all over the place, we can't keep track of them, nobody's following them, a bandage is not going to work here, we need to overhaul everything. And that's a policy renewal. Policy renewal is a nightmare for some organizations. I've seen where they collect their documents, and you're talking hundreds or thousands of documents with tens of thousands of rules. They reorganize them, they update them, they think about them. And at the end of the day, this might take months or years, but what they have is half as many policies, but the policies are twice as long. Organizations bring me in to help them do policy renewal right. So as you can imagine, going from office to office, I see a number of common issues around the offices. Today I'm going to share with you 3 big common mistakes that I see in offices when they're doing policy renewal. The first is the failure to finalize a policy framework. What am I talking about? You ever seen a parking lot that doesn't have lines? You know that people can come and park on them, but the cars don't line up very well. I mean, some people are really bad parkers. Sometimes I think, you know, if we let a bunch of cows go onto the parking lot, they would line themselves up better than people parking their cars. But if you set down the lines first, then the cars will all line up in a neat row. That's what the policy framework does for the policies. It sets them so that you can line them up. Now, I was at a government department a month ago, and they told me they didn't have a framework, but they kept writing the policies anyways. Well, that's like saying, we haven't decided where the lines are going yet, but we're going to let people keep parking their cars. You know what's going to happen. You're going to ask everybody to leave, and then draw your lines, and then ask them to come back and park again. That's a lot of duplication and a lot of rework. The second big mistake groups make is not finalizing a vocabulary before they start writing. So you need to make some decisions that are going to be uniform across your documents. For example, what are you going to call people outside the organization? You're going to call them outsiders, the public, the customers? What are you going to call the things that the company owns? Things, assets, property? You want to settle on a term and use it consistently across all documents. I was at one office where the HR department had issued a memo saying, you be sure in your writing that you do not call consultants and co-op students employees, because they're not employees. And if you call them employees, you open us to liability. And I was a consultant, and that was fine. I was happy with that. But there was another section of the HR group that had a policy that said employees should not harass other employees. Well, that didn't apply to me, obviously. Really happy with that. I don't think that was their intention. All of that could have been avoided if they had simply started with the vocabulary. When I went to the HR people and pointed it out, they kind of backpedaled a little and said, oh, well, people know what we're talking about. I was trained as a lawyer. I practiced law for a while. I don't think the legal department would be quite as forgiving. Pin down your vocabulary first. The third mistake groups make, I'm going to talk about, is the failure to remove the manual from the policy. Let me explain what I'm talking about. By show of hands, can you tell me how many of you have filled out an annual income tax return? Oh, it's everybody here. Great. How many of you, thank you, how many of you, before you filled out the return, read the Income Tax Act? Only one. But most people don't read the Income Tax Act. In fact, almost nobody reads the Income Tax Act. People read the manual. What you read was the little manual that came with the form that told you what to do. A fundamental distinction in policy writing, foundational, is the division between documents that set rules and documents that restate rules. The Income Tax Act sets rules. It's like a policy that sets rules. The manual is a document that explains what you need to know about filling out the form in plain language, easy to understand. The manual is a document or set of documents that gives you examples and explanations and tells you everything that you need to know to function in the office. They're not the same thing. Everybody's going to see the manual. It's kind of like your clothes. Everybody sees them. The policy, that's underwear. Very few people need to see that. You know how a lot of policies are so long, 20, 30, 40 pages long. You know why that's happened? It's because they've confused what goes in the policy with the manual. The policy is bloated with all kinds of information that belongs in the manual. They've tried to accommodate in the policy the purposes of the manual. The manual is supposed to help you get your job done. The manual is supposed to give you explanations and illustrations. The manual is supposed to educate you. That's not the purpose of the policy. The manual is what tells you why you need to do what you do and what are the implications of not doing it and how to get out of it. That's not the purpose of the policy. This distinction is fundamental. And one client came to me after getting this down pat and said, oh, we are so glad we've got this. Since we started putting this in practice, I've been getting notes of appreciation from my clients that are so impressed with the content of our policies. Policy renewal is a complex process. It starts with a foundation and you build on it. And if the foundation is not set right, then the building is not going to be stable. The earlier in the process that you can fix the foundation, the less cleanup you have to do later on. Susan is a director in a government department, and she was able to catch a number of these things very early on in her process. And said to me, what really works for me is now that I know we've got that down and people are doing things right, I have a lot fewer moving parts to worry about, and I can spend my time on my own work. I can help you too. I invite you to attend one of my policy writing workshops where we cover all this information and more. Perfect Policies is about writing policies that are clear, succinct, and respectful. And if you do policies right, you might just find that they are a little more fun.